Today's gonna be fun, I think. Hopefully. Excited. I'm excited to reverse the seat because it was actually pretty fun writing up some of these questions.
Nice.
And
I have zero preparation.
yeah,
Zero. I don't know anything about what you're going to ask.
I'll be interviewing Justin today, like he did me last week. So I think half the fun is in that. So party time. But before we kick off that, just what have you been consuming? Basically, I think we can leave that open ended. Just what are you consuming lately?
Well, I got through my Edward Snowden permanent record book. Yep. So it feels a little strange. I'm down to one book that I'm reading right now, which is the book we're going to be reviewing a little bit later, future podcast. So I really won't go much into that. Don't want to spoiler alert anything. As far as media, I think I may have mentioned to you offline, I have acquired a RetroPie, Raspberry Pi.
Oh, yeah.
Gaming machine.
Yes.
Mini computer. So I have been all up in Castlevania on SNES, NES,
Sega Genesis. Going back old school days.
Yes.
Like it.
Yeah. That's just when I don't feel guilty with my kids being still awake and stuff, or I'm not too tired to play a little bit at night, which is hardly ever. What about you? What are you into this week?
So this I'm gonna brag a little bit, but not too much. So man, what is this? This is not sponsored, by the way, and I'm looking down and glancing at my phone. Fitbod. So Fitbod's my app. I completed 6 workouts out of 7 days this past week.
Nice, man.
So that's getting back into the groove for me. So I've been consuming their content. 2 things that really work well for me with this app is you can go through and like set up your home gym. So it's like you could have nothing and it's just body weight exercises. Or you can have, I've got a couple medicine balls. Like I actually slowed down my gym. I used to have squat rack, sold that off. Now I'm just using like a TRX type thing. The RIP 60 system. I've got a couple medicine balls and a single kettlebell. So it will kind of build up my own. So I can just go press play and don't have to do anything. And it shows a little video of each move.
Oh,
and I like that it's just a short little GIF that loops over and over. So you can be like, okay, I know what they're talking about. Let me go do my reps. And
that is killer. And you know why that's killer? Because back in the day in college, we used to watch videos on different lifts. We're like, dude, yes, that's what I want to do. Just reverse pectoral clean or whatever.
Right.
And then we'd go in there and be like, hey, Chaz, how did that feel? It's like, I don't think I'm supposed to use my back. It's like, we'll have to wait till we get back to the apartment to rewatch the video.
That was pre-super smartphones. But yeah, so I mean that part's great. I don't have to plan it. Remember, we would sit down and like plan out these workouts.
Paper notebook, man.
No planning,
college rule.
no looking up. It's mostly body weight. Don't need a huge gym. And the other big thing for me is it gives you the muscles that are the most recovered. So as you exercise it, it's got something built into the app that's like, okay, you did squats. You need 4 days to recover your legs. So it does
light leg stuff. So you can walk up and down stairs.
Yes, I'm not screaming
cry like a woman.
I did lunges one day.
That's okay to cry like a woman, by the way. We love women. Sorry.
No. So anyway, that's what I'm consuming. It's been fun.
Nice.
And you can tell how long you want to work out. So it's like I set mine to 30. It takes me anywhere from like 35 to 45 because I'm not probably pumping it out as quickly as the supersets need to be or whatever. Anyway, I don't need to drag that out.
You bring the intensity and it brings everything else.
It does everything else.
That's right. Bring it.
So that's been fun to consume and it's been successful, at least 2 weeks. So gonna try to keep that going, keep my streak up and rolling. So
I like it, man.
Yeah.
I'll mention one other thing because my wife has been doing I have 3 sisters-in-law, I think that's how you say it, that are all pregnant.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. Different dads, So that's good. Um, that'd be strange. So they're all doing like the next 60 days.
Uh-huh.
And so my wife has been pumping out some sewing she never sews. And then somebody has a baby and she's like, I'm going to relearn everything I know. And
Yeah.
she's super talented, but she's a perfectionist. So sewing is
Ooh,
not easy
no.
because she's such a perfectionist. So we've had a lot of time this week, which isn't typical, on the couch. She's got a project she's working on in her lap,
Mm-hmm.
sewing.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, let's watch a show or something. So normally this is like rerun of The Office or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
something like that. And we picked up a show that we left on a few seasons ago called Poldark on Amazon. It's a PBS masterpiece.
Mm.
And this season that I'm in right now that we're watching, it's funny when you watch a certain show and the quality season by season is like remarkably different. And in this case, drastically decreasing.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like crazy predictable. The characters have like no setup. They're just like, here, care about this person. You're like, no. I just
Script went down, budget went
yeah.
down.
something,
Yeah.
something, or maybe now this is based on a book, and I haven't done
Mm,
any research
okay.
on if it's a series, but maybe they're kind of like, okay, they lost the context of the book. Now they're
Mhm.
in a screenwriter writing its own stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And
So,
maybe it's terrible because it's getting a little bit like, yeah, it's kind of like The Walking Dead went that way for me. A
mhm.
bunch of these shows that get in just kind of ironically, they get into their own kind of like plot arc overall with quality of the show, and then they just drop off and I lose interest.
Yeah. Oh, I could see that. That happens to a lot of things, especially with like sequel movies.
Oh, yeah.
You can never judge, some seasons. No. Oh, and I mean, speaking of The Office, we had family, not this past week, the week prior, for a
Mm.
family wedding locally, and trying to show them a couple episodes of The Office. Office is like no longer free anywhere. It's not on
Oh,
Netflix. It's not on
glad I got my
Amazon.
old school DVDs,
I
man.
know. I know.
First 3 seasons.
Man, I was just like, all right, I have to YouTube these clips. So it was
Wow.
I had to show him. So my brother-in-law is going into psychology and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to show him the episode with Jim training Dwight with his chime on his computer for the mints.
Nice. Pavlov's dog. Yes.
Classic. So, well, I'm gonna fire off some of these questions here.
Let's do it.
Let's see, where do we start? Let's start on this one. So, would you do stand up?
I wouldn't do stand up because I like a small audience. And I like people that I know. But when I was a kid / teen, people are like, wow, you have no shame. You should do stand up comedy. I was like, yeah, I should do that. But no,
Yeah,
I like more of an intimate setting. I would never really give that a pitch
parties,
because
friends. Yeah.
yeah, the passion is in the friendships and the acquaintances and making those people laugh
Mm-hmm.
and kind of in a weird way, kind of serving them in that way,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to a bunch of people and just kind of like, yeah, I'm fulfilled. I'm on a stage. It's not me. So I'm kind of an enigma like that. Yeah.
Okay. I remember this was probably back in college, where you were like, maybe I'd write up some stuff and give these.
Yeah.
Like there was that
Material.
era. I mean, that was
True.
back when we used to like host all these parties at
Oh,
our
yeah.
place, man. Man, that hosting stuff it was getting out there. That was fun. Good
It's fun.
times. So yeah, so this will help us elaborate a little, and this is part of you that I don't necessarily know, right? Who is the high school Justin? Like, what was he
Yeah.
like? And then the follow-up question to that would be like, how do you contrast that today
Yeah.
with like growing in from that Justin to this Justin? Like, what are some of those big morphs? But like, first, who were you back then, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my high school has kind of two major chapters. My high school, me.
Era.
The first chapter was born and raised South Carolina, went to the high school that most of my siblings graduated from.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad got a job transfer and we moved to St. Louis, Missouri. And I moved there my summer between freshman and sophomore years. So you can imagine you get through your first year of high school as a freshman, move to a new place, you're brand new. People are like, oh, you must be a freshman. It's like, no, I'm a sophomore. I just moved here. It's like, yeah, okay. Nobody knows you.
Yeah, we don't.
So I think there was a me that reverted into a little bit of a shell because I'd only lived in one place in the same house my entire life up to that point.
Yeah.
But it was actually a great thing because while it pushed me a little bit into a shell out of my comfort zone, I actually got a lot closer with a tighter knit circle of friends.
Mm-hmm.
That would include like Jake, one of our mutual friends, right? From high
that's
school.
how we met, through him.
Yeah. So friends like that became way more important. And man, I had a crew that I would run with at high school that some of them were friends from church. A bunch of them were friends who just had similar interests.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of a funny kid. I wanted to do cross country and didn't do it. That's a big regret. I wish I would have. I probably wouldn't have been a chunk as much.
I'll chime in here. So it's interesting because there was a time, I gotta think probably 8th grade. I had a group of friends that were all in cross country. And I was like, I should do that. I'm an offensive football defensive lineman. And yeah, I want to go run cross country.
Yeah, man.
And I went, talked to the coach, talked everything. And then I don't know why I didn't do it. I can't quite remember, but it's funny that you had that same, path. I mean, when I was junior high, I was like, no way I was doing that in high school. I think I just realized I wasn't great at running at the time. So it would have been a big leap. Anyway,
I would say my freshman year, I had a lot of interests. I was very, very involved. These were kids that I grew up with who knew me really well and kind of had a reset button. And it probably took 2.5 years in St. Louis to kind of, again, establish that core group of friends. And I'm really glad that towards my senior year, I focused on commitments to serve a mission, being a missionary for our church. That really pushed me to leave some of the school friends that maybe weren't the best influence or I couldn't really bring around. But I don't know what else. I dated a little bit at that time. We did a ton of group dates.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what we did. And a lot of sports, a lot of video games, a lot of music and kind of discovering music.
Yeah.
And close friends.
Yeah. Okay. Elaborate maybe. This is kind of a question you asked me, right? So, discovering me. I mean, that seemed to be my era, discovering music, right? High school. Yeah. So what were some of those moments or artists that, just opened it up to you?
Mine are super distinct, really distinct. A few things happened, and this was probably 7th or 8th grade. I was definitely in middle school. So I'll say 3 things happened. One, my brother, who's older than me, went off to college, and I had my own room for probably the first time in my life.
Right.
So I had my own room. And then that same brother sold a bunch of his car system and had a subwoofer that he basically was like, hey, I'm not taking this with me to college. So he left it.
Yeah.
So I learned to hook it up to my Magnavox turntable, CD player, dual cassette.
Nice.
Yeah. So I kept that on the floor, and it was an MTX 12-inch sub. And my brother had built the box himself with a buddy. And so I had that in my room. It was above the kitchen. I used to play that so loud. So I had this amazing means of playing music, right? So that's kind of got my own room.
Yeah.
Had this amazing means of playing music. This is 7th, 8th grade. CDs are like $20, right?
Yep.
I don't have any tapes. I don't own tapes. but my mom had a ton of actual albums, like vinyl.
Yeah.
And so that set, like seventh grade, she had the Beatles, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Mamas and the Papas, Elvis,
bunch of the
but
classics.
yeah, just a bunch of stuff like that. So I would play records all the time, and I'd play the radio. So I had this 12-inch subwoofer
Played on
with
vinyl.
this turntable. Yeah, playing vinyl. So no headphones ever. And then third kind of turning point was eighth grade. My buddy Matt at school was like, "Hey, my brother does this Columbia CD thing where,
yes.
yeah,
Mail order.
yeah,
Right?
mail order, and then
Checking
you pay the money
boxes.
later, or
Yeah. And it was
whatever
like
that ripoff was.
$1.25 per CD or something crazy, but you had to have a minimum of like 10 or 12.
Yes. So
Oh,
that was what his brother did, and he's like, "Hey, do you have a CD player?" And I said, "I do have a CD player." So he came over one time, and I had like not just a little CD player, I had like a CD player with this subwoofer on it.
Yeah.
So he brought over 3 CDs, and he actually let me borrow them like over the weekend.
Yeah.
And they were Black Sabbath Paranoid, Led Zeppelin 4th album, and Smashing Pumpkins Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. So his brother was definitely into grunge and
that is quite
early
the contrast from what you've been playing on vinyl right before.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I went straight from like 60s pop and songwriting to like Black Sabbath. And
wow.
So the first time I listened to, Iron Man, the first time I listened to the entire Led Zeppelin 4 album just blew my mind. I was changed. I was forever changed.
So,
and on a CD.
Yeah.
So
let me ask this, because it's bringing back some memories for me too. Same time period, had my own room in the basement, had a boom box, right? Like a 3 CD changer.
Oh, snap. 3D with remote?
3. Yeah, I had the remote.
Oh, dude, you're set.
That was the Christmas gift that year. So
nice.
I remember, laying on the bed just playing CDs over and over. It was, for me, that was when Eve 6 and Everclear. Those were,
man.
Those stand out to me.
Monica.
It's just coming back. I don't remember this last week. Anyway, but Green Day Dookie CD.
Oh, yeah.
And I bought it. I paid cash. I paid the, $15-16. This was before they had ratings on CDs.
Yeah.
I knew was basket case. I was like, I want basket case. I went and bought the CD. I come home, and then number 4 track. I still remember this. Number 4 tracks, like the F word, the F bomb. I love it. And my mom comes marching.
Pretty sure that track is Longview or something like that. Bite my lip and close my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom comes down. She makes me take the CD back to the store to return it because of all the cussing. And she's like, "Why are there not age ratings for all these CDs?" And she was predicting this, right? Anyway, but how'd your parents and everybody else in the household take that transition? And was it smooth? You didn't have to take CDs back like I did. Maybe.
Yeah, it was pretty smooth, man. I tell you, it wasn't too long after that with school buddies and friends in the neighborhood, we would eat. None of us, like, we weren't working at that point. It was 6th, 7th, or 7th, 8th grade, right?
Right. Yeah, too young.
So we borrow CDs that family members had and stuff. So I had, like No Doubt, Oasis, the Weezer Blue album, which I borrowed for like the entire summer from my buddy Andrew. Props to Andrew. Sorry about that, man. I did give it back. I was probably pretty scratched up.
Anyway.
Yeah, I still have it. I think it went okay.
Parents were open to different.
My parents were they were pretty cool with that. I think maybe my mom just always assumed I was playing the Beatles with a lot of bass.
Because you were shaking the whole house.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But anyway.
Very fun. No, that was so speaking, this is just a random story. My friend Jeff, who you know.
Yep.
Christensen. So we were big into car systems in high school.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
built my own box, two 12s. They were off
Nice.
brands, a 1200-watt amp, wired it all. His car, my car. He had I think no, his was a 12 as well. His was brand and his was a plexiglass box.
Oh, geez.
Anyway, so we
Nice.
decide, hey, let's get these inverters from computers
Yeah.
because that turns it to DC. We go
Yeah.
plug these in his basement, bring our boxes and our amps down in his basement, hook it up to his computer. So now we're
Yeah, we
pumping
can
like
do. Yeah.
three 12s, and he lives out. He used to live out in the way. We cranked it up and we walked down the street, and literally 7 houses away, you could still hear this music playing.
No way.
Oh man, that was
Amazing.
just crazy. Anyway, those used to be the back massages. Going to lunch at high school was like, hey,
Yeah.
put in that bass CD. I've got so much back
Dude,
from football practice. Just
people,
turn it up.
people, people who are listening who may not remember, you
Yeah.
have to remember there used to be CDs of nothing but bass,
Yes. Bass
rhythm tracks,
mechanics. Oh man.
like stuff you probably like would never ever recognize the artist of.
Yep.
It was like dubstep and stuff like that before
Mhm.
there was dubstep.
Yeah.
It was
Just
just
pure
to
bass CDs. Yeah.
just to tune up your system. That's all it was.
And back then, before CD players in cars, so we
Yeah.
had spliced headphone wires from a CD player into his radio so we could put CDs in the car while we were driving with these big, amped up
Hilarious,
systems. Anyway,
yeah.
man, those times crazy. Uh, let's see here. I gotta see which one I want to ask you next. Okay, shifting gears. Kind of fasting forward a little bit. So what keeps you humble these days?
Oh man, I wish more things. Because I'm always ripe. I'll just say that. Got a big ego. And I shouldn't. What keeps me humble? Kids keep me pretty humble.
Yeah.
We've struggled to have our family,
Mm-hmm.
and my son especially, my youngest, went through really a lot of medical challenges when he was born. 2 weeks after he was born, nearly lost him. Different story for a different day /
Yeah.
podcast.
Yep.
He really keeps me humble quite a bit. There's a gratitude and appreciation that's just transmitted spiritually when I'm around my kids.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean they don't ever do things that make me mad or challenge that humility, but that helps quite a bit. I think also, just kind of looking at my career and people who've helped me and how that's built me up, humble me quite a bit at work. And just in terms of day to day, just eternal perspective helps a lot, just to think, what matters right now?
Mm-hmm.
Does that matter in the long run? And those are all things that take a long time to try and declutter life enough to remember, which is again why I wish more things humbled me. That's not really true. It's not I wish more things humbled me. It's that I wish I was in better practice of humbling myself. But those are definitely some influences that.
No, I think those are great. Those with the questions I have left. Those are the two topics I wanted to dive into. So it's great to hear how they're that source as well. So not necessarily anything recently, but I think dads and fathers kind of get this. They always play like the underdog role in a lot of commercials and media.
Yeah,
and
stupid dad
sitcoms. It's all
because stupid dad's funny.
Or it's sports dad who only watches sport. Anyway, it's all the
caveman, right?
Yeah, caveman dad. Like, I can't cook. I don't even know how to make a phone call. Or
laugh track.
Oh, you're talking to the insurance.
He's an idiot. His wife carries him through life.
Yes, exactly. Right. So there's all those things out there that kind of portray this. So, with your experiences in fatherhood, what advice would you give some of the dads or future dads out there?
Yeah, man. So it's interesting. I was raised in a very stable home with very particular parents. And they were particular because they were raised by my grandparents who were Great Depression era.
Right. Yep.
And so discipline was always like pretty much always right there available. Sentimentality was kind of a one-sided thing from one of my parents and not the other. But appreciation for kids and sacrifices made for kids and working together always happened in our house, which I'm really grateful for. And so, that's one thing that I would say is really important. I'm discovering more and more in the last couple of years as my kids go from babies to being toddlers and talking and starting to find their own independence is don't try and control too much. Let a lot of things happen. Doesn't mean let your kid fall off a cliff, but be willing to let your kids fail when they're finding that independence, because they need to find what they know and you need to find that too. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of folks who have kids or who intend to have kids who are like, my kids are going to be this way.
Yeah.
And this is how I will raise them. Therefore, it's like they try and draw the equation and say, well, I know me and I know what kind of kids that I want to have or capabilities or talents I want them to have. Therefore, the other end of the equation is I will have these kids that are this way or that have this type of life or personality. And that's just not how it works. So you have to let some of that control in that equation of like, I know me. No, you don't. Not until you have kids, for one. And two, I know what my kids are going to be like. No, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't mean be hands off. It means be absolutely hands on and be part of your kids' lives every day, but let them be them. Let them argue, and then just come in and be like, oh, you crossed the line.
Yeah.
And this is where you cross the line.
Set boundaries, let them be their self.
Boundaries. Healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries.
Healthy boundaries. I like the failing part in your home because I think
that's the safest place to do it, man.
Yeah,
safest
you don't want them to I don't know. I think it can create, if they think they have to be perfect all the time, it creates some unrealistic expectations. And then when they get out into the real world after they leave your house, go to high school events or go to college, and then they start failing there, that's way too late in life.
That's exactly it, man. It's who are you? And if your identity by the time you're leaving the home or preparing to move the home, and your identity is I'm who my mom and my dad tell me I am. That's not a good thing. The other end of the spectrum isn't a good thing either. I've had this free form, non-accountable, not just kind of like there's nothing, right? You got to be right there in the middle and be the moral compass, the spiritual lead, and the facilitator, like let things happen, right? Yeah. And give your kids love, give them encouragement, allow them to fail in the home, so that they can go out, and it's a great way to teach them to empathize. Yeah. As well as, like you said, in a setting where they don't have the structure, they don't have the love and reinforcement right there, and then they fail, then what?
So what's different? So, you grew up in this house with that form of discipline. How are you finding yourself disciplining the young ones and the good, the bad, the ugly there? Like, I mean, because our initial reaction is going to often be what our parents did, right? It's a reaction.
It is. And man, for everybody out there, it's scary. Right. You are your parents.
Yeah.
A lot.
It just comes out, and then you have to like fight through that. So yeah, what does that look like for you?
Man, that's a great question. So it's a lot of bad and ugly. It's some good. So a lot of the things that I always want to be aware of is the total opposite of what I just said before, which is I don't want to be the nagging, constantly saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and never teach. Never explain, and never mentor, and never take the time, because that's not actually discipline. That's just bossing your kids around.
Yeah.
That doesn't build any character. It doesn't build any talent.
Yep.
Doesn't build any fortitude. Those are all like old words, right? Old characteristics that really need to be dusted off, because when you get to adulthood, those are all required.
Yeah, I agree.
So how do I deal with discipline? How do I catch myself? Well, we work, man, as a family. That's what we do. When our kids get stuff out and spread things out all over the house, toys, games, dress up stuff, it's their job to put it away. Because when it's not their job, it's mommy and daddy's job, and we got other jobs to do.
Yeah.
And so I find myself often like my parents saying like, hey, daughter, you need to come pick this stuff up and put it away. Okay, that's great. Saying you need to, but never addressing the why is something I have to be a lot better at. And it doesn't mean I need to be like, all right, I've got a PowerPoint presentation ready for everybody. Check out these slides. So the reason why, follow me. Here we go.
Right.
We're putting our toys away.
A little bit more, not the, you can't, they don't reason well, right? They don't, even long conversations, right? So it's got to be, do this, here's why, in like 1 or 2 words if possible, or a sentence or 2.
And you got to be your kid's cheerleader, because nobody else is.
Yeah.
Sucks, but that's how it is. Nobody else is.
Downer. Don't be that. When
so,
you can be, but
so when it comes to discipline and tasking, I need to be less a taskmaster and more of a, let me get down there and help you and show you, but not do it for you.
Yep.
I like teach you and praise the heck out of you as you make baby steps towards, like you said, carving out that why and that reasoning that they don't inherently have as they develop.
I like that.
Reinforcing the good.
I've noticed myself working through similar things with Scotty. Is like, sometimes we'll ask him to, like you're saying, hey, you need to pick that up. And he's just like, I can't do all that, right? In his mind, he literally thinks he cannot do all that.
That's right.
So it's been very helpful when it's like, I'll help you. I'm going to work on this section. What section would you like to work on? And then he's like, oh yeah, and then there's not even an issue.
Teamwork, collaboration.
Approach it the right way. I found he's just like, oh great, teamwork. Let's do this. So.
The gap for dads out there and future dads out there, again, another equation is like what you'd like to see your kids be able to accomplish is the right side of the equal sign. The variables are a kid that you can't get in their mind, what they're going through and how they're feeling. And that's everybody, by the way, right? You've got that. So the only way you can address that is like what I tell some of my other kids as they try and work together to work things out. I'm like, hey, don't be off in vinegar, offer the honey, be kind, be sweet, be empathetic, and clearly communicate the expectations and the timeline and do it in an encouraging way. And then hopefully, maybe, and you got to be patient with that, because what you expect on the equal side, which is like, my kid's going to pick up all their toys. This is how we're going to do it. It's going to happen. It's like, this is a major, very complex request that you're making, that you have years of reinforcement and multiple roles, child, parent, observer, because we've all seen people try and tell their kids to pick some up and you go, my kid's never going to do that. Said every person ever. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think a key to that's just popping in my head here is sometimes, and maybe I still do this. I'd have to think back through. Anyway, the point is, when you make those requests, sometimes we think they need to do it immediately.
Right.
And it's like, when I talk to other adults and ask them something, do I not give them some time to process? Like, if they didn't move immediately, like, would I be snapping at them or being like, hey, I asked you a question, like, why aren't you talking back to me? So, and offering that same courtesy, I guess, to kids.
That's right.
Them that
And the gap, if you want to be mechanical, is you provide a task with hardly any preparation, really unclear expectation, and then straight to accountability and discipline.
Yeah.
That's called setting people up to fail. If you did that in the workplace, if you were a leader, they'd be like, dude, give me that. You suck at this. So why is it any different as parents? It's not. It's not any different as parents. We just have a million more opportunities to practice every day.
I think it ties in workplace, like servant, like the old school leader mentality doesn't work in the workplace anymore, and it doesn't work in the home anymore, right? So I think this new, like, I need to be a servant leader. I need to be open, work with them, let them be themselves, right? Let them bring out their own strengths.
Yes.
So this is a good segue right into the next question. So,
wait, can I do mentor moment though?
Yeah. Pause.
Because this is exactly like the mentor moment.
Sweet.
I think fitting. Something I brought. I'm trying to get this to work. I apologize. I got a quote that I don't want to take out of paraphrase.
Sure. Yeah, no, go for it.
Because I'll ruin it. So I'm going to try this one more time. Here we go. Money. Okay. So a few years back, I was reading a book. I tend to like books on really strong leaders. And I don't mean authoritarians, although I've read a lot of those biographies too on what not to do.
Yeah.
But in short, I was consuming a book on General Patton, biography on General Patton, World War II, famed general, lived a short life after that. Mm-hmm. And so the book is Patton and his Third Army. And this is a quote that is attributed to General Patton. And it says, quote, if you want an army, or this would be a family or a coworker or a group, a team, an organization.
Okay.
If you want an organization, team, family, child, army to fight and risk death, in other words, accomplish something, do things that are difficult, put something on the line, sacrifice, dare I say, right? But in this case, fight and risk death. You've got to get up there and lead it. An army or an organization is like spaghetti. You can't push this piece of spaghetti. You've got to pull it. So I really like that imagery. You can't push a piece of spaghetti. It's like, well, we're talking out of the box, crunchy? No, we're talking al dente.
Yes.
Like toss it against the wall spaghetti. You can't push it. What happens? Just that visual, right?
Yeah.
You get everybody breaking off, doing their own thing. I'm an individual. I don't need to listen to you. I'm a nonconformist, right?
Yeah.
I can't get behind this. This mission's too much. This task is too hard. And so the only way you can do that is get out in front of it. You know, you can't drive people to perform from behind. It doesn't work.
Yeah. I think that might be a future episode topic right there. Push, pull. I've got some good and bad experiences to share there. A few more questions here when we'll wrap things up. Along the same lines though. So Dave Ramsey, he says this all the time in his like entree leadership, servant leadership mentality, right? He says to be unclear is to be unkind, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to flip that on you and say, so how in your scenarios, in your leadership, in the roles you've been in, how have you been kind by having those clear, direct conversations as you lead? How have you been kind to those you lead?
Yeah, well, I think it all kind of meshes back to, what comes to my mind, something I said earlier about accountability for something you haven't communicated is the epitome of unfair. And you could say is the start of force, cruelty, dominion. And so in the context of kind of leadership and roles that I've had, unclear, it's funny because as a leader, another phrase that I like, another quote that I like that I will just paraphrase is, a leader recognizes that every time they open their mouth, they're a leader. no matter what. So you open your mouth, you're going to say something, you need to be ready to back it up. But you also need to be aware of who your audience is and what you're trying to accomplish together. And so when something is not clear, and I would even say that the communication isn't concise and customized for the individual, if it's an individual thing, then you're setting that person up to fail. But as a leader, you're thinking, no, what I've done is I properly tasked, right? I've delegated
the tasks and my job's done.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. No, I've told this person that I expect them to have this deliverable on this date. Okay. Did you tell them the format? Did you show them where the tools are that they could apply? Did you give them enough context to understand the tone, the audience? Because a lot of times as a leader, things aren't stopping with you. You're asking your team to produce, and then you're providing it, in my case, often to a customer, right?
Yeah.
And so when you task your team, you don't give them clear expectations. You hold them accountable afterwards when you're like, man, it's the day before the deadline and you gave me this. If you look in the mirror, the majority of the time, you're going to find the culprit as to why you don't have what you are looking for. And so that's really where a lot of the kindness comes in, is I would say fairness, right? If you ask somebody to do something without clearly defining their role and your appreciation level for it, hey, I really appreciate you doing this. It's just, you're cracking a whip. And when you are disappointed in the output, you should know who started it. It's not your team.
Yeah.
It's not your family. It's not your kid.
It makes me another quote from Dave, just because he says he's had years of practice consolidating these thoughts down into, a few phrases. One thing he often says is, as a, owner or leader, if you look, the bad news is you're the problem, right? You're the problem to all these issues, right? If you're the ultimate, at various levels. But the good news is you're also the solution, right? So if you look in the mirror, you're looking at the problem. If you look in the mirror, you're also looking at the solution. Just that all those things you mentioned can be changed if in, realizing, have you been kind to them, or have you been unkind to these people that you lead because you've been so unclear? You're not setting them, like you said, you're setting them up to fail, all those things. So, and that'll lead into the last question here. So we touched on this a little bit last time, but I wanted to just kind of open this up for you, of if you would share how mentors and tribes, have affected you in your life and in your career path.
Yeah, career-wise, I was lucky enough before I really started my career to have people that had great influence on me within my own family, within circles of friends who were great leaders, even though we were contemporaries, or a couple years, a couple years older than me, as well as, leaders in our church that really were, they walk the walk, they talk the talk, and they still were real, right? So I think that was the first thing that really helped me, is I saw what a mentor should look like. I didn't realize, though, until I started my career, how badly I needed a mentor. Still always do. I'm just that person. I always have questions. And although I've got a enormous ego, I still have to have that shred of humility in me who's like, but I should bounce this off somebody. Yeah. But it's not for permission, but it's for wisdom, right? I want to understand truth and wisdom wherever it's found. And so early in the career, it was just total happenstance to have landed an internship that became my first job, where there was an older manager there who was my direct report. And he knew I was a kid, and he knew I knew nothing, but he didn't hold that against me. And he still respected me and just said, hey, you got a lot to learn. He used to call me Justy, and stuff like that didn't bug me, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, geez, if there was a totem pole, I was like subterranean on like,
You're the
you
part
know,
under the ground.
yeah, I was just like the base of the totem pole
Yeah.
that was completely uncarved, boring. Like that was me in the mud, in the organization. And yet he respected me. He
Mm.
gave me a voice. He spent one-on-one time. He'd coach me up on everything from, you know, how to understand benefit packages every year as we
Yeah.
renewed benefits as a company,
Mm.
to trying to explain real clearly the context and the importance of some of the tasks that he gave me.
He was
Help me
being clear,
understand our,
right?
what's that?
He was being clear to our previous points, right? It sounds like
Yeah.
he's giving you all these details. He was not being unclear.
He gave me a lot of tools, and he also let me run with some tasks and not give me all the tools because I felt like I had some,
Mm.
right? So he was willing to allow some
Some autonomy.
continuous improvement, process change, kind of let me simmer on some things. And that was great. And he was the type of person to give you an idea that when I did find a new opportunity, more pay, more responsibility, he was like, hey, is there anything that I can do? And genuinely meant this, is there anything that I can do to keep you here on our team?
Mm-hmm.
I need to challenge you more. Is there more I can give you? And it was crazy because it wasn't like some, like, okay, check the box. This young guy's going to leave our company.
Yeah.
Right on.
Right.
You know, at that point, I had some pretty good projects that were going. Um, and again, it's just respect to me. It's just
Yeah.
respect. It's like, hey, if you recognize and recognize your employees and your team for who they are, a group of individuals, then that went a long way. So I picked those things up, and the next organization that I joined was totally backwards from that one. But again, I had a mentor that actually helped me see that a lot of the leadership in that organization was really not good.
Yeah.
And he wasn't critical on his perch over here,
Mm-hmm.
but he was actively trying to change the politics, change the process, improve the culture.
Yep.
And in the end,
Yeah.
the culture actually kicked him out, right? You know, he wasn't part of the good old boys club
Yeah.
in that organization. And I left shortly before that, to another organization. But I had a couple mentors there. You know, one thing that I've tried to follow is I can have people who maybe they don't directly report to me, but we're um, at the same, in a similar position, different
Mm-hmm.
team,
Yeah.
right? We're a producer. We're not really a manager. And I found that although it may not be like a formal mentor situation, there's always things I can learn from those people, always. And that's helped me when I'm really hungry for mentorship and understanding and just being that sponge. Find it in the people who in the cube across from you
Yep.
who are on a different team, and not in a way that wastes their time and not in a way that threatens their world of their
Yeah.
responsibilities, but trying to understand the bigger picture, trying to learn from others how to think strategically if you don't have a mentor who's helping you see the strategic thinking of the organization.
Yeah, no, I like that because I was just thinking, how can, for our listeners out there that never, I was in this situation for years, never really had that mentor or had those type similar experiences for you. So for those listening, like, I mean, use
Yeah.
things around you. They don't have to be an official mentor. Although I did at one point ask a good friend who I kept going back to. I was like, hey, would you be like an official mentor for me? Because I
Mm.
think I don't need check-ins a lot, like maybe once a year, maybe
Yeah.
every 6 months, just so I can, these big, huge, like career change decisions, can I bounce these things off you? So I think
Can I
that,
give you a crazy recommendation
yeah,
that if I could go back to my old self, I would do this?
do it.
Find the person in your organization that's approachable, that nobody likes, but still works for the organization. They produce,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about somebody who is, sleeping with the boss or something. That's not what I mean. Not somebody with a bad reputation. Somebody people don't like
Mm.
or is the butt of the jokes. Every organization tends to find that person, right? It's kind of just a weird organizational behavior dynamic. It's
Yep.
not a good thing, but those people exist. Go with genuineness and kindness to that person and pick their brain about what they do and how they do what they do.
Yeah.
And one, it'll humble the heck out of you because you'll be like, wow, there's some level of competency here,
Oh yeah.
despite not getting along with people. But you're going to get a different perspective on the organization that's going to help you that eventually when you're a leader and you've got multiple people who don't get along, people who do get along,
Yep.
producers, underproducers, overproducers, and you've got to get them to all work together to keep your mission going.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say take that person aside, go to lunch. I mean, genuinely,
Chat with them.
um, go and pick their brain and see how they tick. And it's not because you want to emulate 100%, but because you're going to get a different paradigm
Mm-hmm.
than what you currently have.
No, I like that. I like that. One last thought for me would be when you were talking about kind of, you may be in a headspace where you're like, I don't need anybody's help, right?
Yep.
It made me think, people to use golf. I mean, this may be a bad analogy, right? But I'll throw out a few sports things, right? The whole typical sports dad. Tiger Woods had a coach. He still has a coach.
Yeah.
Michael
Oh, yeah.
Jordan had a coach, right? So all these, we
Right.
love sports. We get that,
Top of their game, right?
top of their game, people at the top of their game or
Nobody should be
working.
able to tell them anything, teach them anything.
Exactly. They all have
Right.
these coaches, and you may not, and we're not saying go out, get a life coach tomorrow, right? I mean,
Right.
you're in that space and that's what you need. Great. Go for that. But you can, like you said, use the advice. You've got coaches around you. You've got people you can pick their brains. You can turn them into a coach without them knowing they're a coach.
Yep. People love talking about themselves.
Oh yeah.
And the ability to do that and spark that and start that conversation is genuineness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.